Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about an imminent, and I mean imminent, showdown between some 25 states and the administration over the administration's decision, ultimate decision. At first, they were the other way to suspend the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is a whole fund already appropriated to provide low-income Americans food or food stamps for food, which appropriations and provisions are under the statute mandatory, something that the USDA the U.S. Department of Agriculture, has to provide, but is at the cusp of taking away. So this lawsuit is in front of a judge in Massachusetts who indicated in a hearing that she was going to be ruling probably today, and who seemed very troubled, especially given the statutory scheme that seems to say, here's money, we've already appropriated it. When there's a jam, use it. But the administration, being the administration and not caring farthing, is that a British expression? I'm not sure. Not caring a fig for what the Congress says, has moved to suspend, basically to continue to really put the screws to Democrats to make them knuckle under and cry uncle in terms of the ongoing shutdown. So there's an actual whole history laid out in this 150-page complaint, where at the beginning of the month, there was an advisory that went from the Agriculture Department to all the states saying, steady as she goes, we're going to keep funding this in the event of a shutdown, and the money's in place, etc. Then repeated on like the 10th of October, the money's here, etc. And then on something like October 24th, just pulled the rug out from under it. We needn't talk about how SNAP works in great detail. The basic idea is it's a federal state program, and a lot of money comes from the feds. Each state administers it for itself, and it's really been critical. Last year, more than 40 million people avoided hunger or malnutrition because of SNAP. More than 62% of the SNAP participants are in families with children, 37% elderly members. So, it's such an essential safety net. If you're going to have a safety net, it's almost the very first thing you would do: keep citizens from starving and have available, funds to actually be sure that there is, food on the table in the tightest of times. So the Agricultural Department said exactly that. There's money here. This is money that Congress already has appropriated, so is in the kitty. And the Congress has written, assistance under this program shall be furnished to all eligible households, and that depends on income, who make application. And it's referred to them as obligations of the United States within the meaning of Section 8 of Title 18. That's just another way of really sort of buttressing the obligation of the government to provide them. And but after it's done, you need to have an appropriations bill. That also has happened here. And at that point, the benefits should just be going out, I think, in the form of like prepaid debit cards. We're literally at that point of the prepaid cards ready to go out to people who desperately need it, including, young children and the elderly. Okay, so our executive branch, Agricultural Department, said we're fine. We have money to continue. Said that on October 1st. On October 10th, they sent a letter with making it a little bit less clear, saying if the shutdown continues, there may be insufficient funds to pay the full benefits for everyone. And then if that happens, we may be forced to direct states to hold their November issuance and delay. It'll all retroactively come back. So all of a sudden they made it uncertain. And then October 24th, the very day that the AG sent a letter to USDA saying, what the hell is going on, please, about these contingency funds? They just said, we're suspending all November 2025 benefit allotments until such time as sufficient federal funding is provided. Of course, it has been provided, but it's saying, and right now you can't do the final step since the government is shut down. And it's, I think, broadly interpreted to be a, mean-spirited, Scrooge-like measure to just stick it to the Dems and increase the pressure on them to permit the Republicans to open the government without doing anything about the Obamacare healthcare subsidies and the like. So they've sued. And there was this hearing yesterday, and the court said she's going to issue a ruling, but seemed to think, why not now? So it'll set up, if the hard-hearted administration receives a ruling by her saying, keep this money flowing, do they apply for emergency relief and ask the First Circuit, the court that sits above Massachusetts, to suspend the lower court's ruling? I don't think the First Circuit will do that. So, it could be going to the Supreme Court. But the basic legal positions that of all the AGs are two, but both under the Administrative Procedure Act, which we, well know at this point. First, it's just a violation of an unlawful action, not in accordance with law. Set it aside. That is to say, the suspension. And then second, and relatedly, but this is the sort of core command of the APA, it is arbitrary and capricious. You say on the first, it's going to be flowing, we're making plans, we're relying on your representation, and then boom, you arbitrarily and capriciously pull out the rug from under us. So that is the legal argument. And if it gets up to higher courts, you can imagine the administration arguing aggressively. This is one of many things that are just during a shutdown in the president's discretion. This is the very kind of thing, sort of the core thing that Trump was trumpeting, as it were. That Trump was making a big deal of saying he could really cause pain for Democrats if there was a shutdown. So, saying with Congress absent and money not flowing, he could make real trouble and cause pain for people in Democrat blue states. And it sure seems that that's what he's aiming to do here. So we ought to know probably by the end of the day whether the court will order the Department of Agriculture to let that money flow again to hungry people who will, starting tomorrow, the November 1st, not have the funds. And then should that happen, and it seemed like that's the way the court was going in her hearing, whether the administration tries to push back and take these cards out of the the clutches of people who need them so badly and depend on them every day. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.